Hello everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate it. Today I wanted to go ahead and bring you all a basic video on better tattoo hygiene practices. And for this specific video particular, I'm going to go ahead and touch base more on the materialistic side of approaching better practices for hygiene upon tattooing. And then I'll go ahead and make a whole other video on, actually tattooing and better practices that we can take upon actually tattooing. So to me, I feel like there's two different sides. There's a side where we have to know what to use for better hygienic practices, and then we have to know how to use them. So that's going to be two completely different videos. I'm going to go ahead and break it down here as easy as I can for you all, so you can all understand my approach and thought process that I take to get to where I'm going, so to speak. So I feel it'll be best where I show you all the materials and my thought process behind the materials that I use for better hygienic practices. And then I can go ahead and make a whole other video and show you all how I apply these materials to my tattooing workflow. So let's just dive into this here. Now, as you all can see, I have a different assortment of materials here. Most of them I don't use, and I'm gonna go ahead and explain why and why I do use what I use. Now, as you all can see off to the side over here, we also have some toilet paper. We also have some Scotch napkins. We have regular shop towels right here. We have some vinyl gloves and a different array of materials that I specifically use and do not use in my workflow. Now, the reason why I have like toilet paper here and Scotch napkins is because throughout my time of tattooing, trying to get information from credible sources, I came across people who were tattooing, and let's say some of them weren't using gloves, some of them were actually using rolls of toilet paper here to wipe and clean their tattoos. Now, I'm not knocking anybody and I'm not discouraging anyone from trying to proceed with tattooing. However, I do want to make this video and just try and be as informative as I can for you, so that way we can kind of know some boundaries here within tattooing and what we should and shouldn't do. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and begin with, I guess, the napkins here. So with the napkins, I have a different assortment here. So I have some Wipeouts. I have actual Scotch shop wipes is what these are called. I have Scotch napkins. And then I also have regular household toilet paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and begin with the toilet paper, and I'm going to show you all why I don't use this. First and foremost, I don't use toilet paper because it's obvious. This isn't for tattooing. This is not designed in any way, shape, or form for tattooing. This is designed for other household purposes, and we all know what this is designed for. So this is obvious and apparent why I don't use toilet paper. It should never be used for tattooing, because you got to remember, tattooing is a procedure. We are literally opening skin, so a lot of crazy things can happen to tattoos, and this right here is just bad practice. So this is a no-go. I don't care if it just came out of the bag or if it's brand new or anything like that. And I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit further on why I don't care, because if you look here, the fibers within the toilet paper aren't designed for tattooing. So essentially, these fibers right here, if wiped, let's say if the tattoo is wiped with one of these edges here and they dab it into the skin, let's say the skin somehow wanted to absorb this fiber, it can do so, and the fiber is going to heal in the skin. So that can cause some sort of infections down the line. I've heard stories where infections actually heal over. I mean, it heals, and then the healing process will take place and heal over the infection, so therefore the infection is still under the healed tattoo, so the client will experience itching. So this is one reason why, and the only reason that I will never use this for tattooing, simply because all types of crazy stuff can happen. These fibers are not designed for wiping open skin. So that's why I wanted to bring this here and touch base on that. Do not use this for tattooing, and that is why. The fibers are too thin. The material is also too thin, and upon wetting or wiping, it's just not built for that, and that is why. Now, I also have the Scotch wipes right here, the Scotch household napkins. This is basically comparable to Bounty. Bounty is a standard, pretty much industry standard. Everyone pretty much uses Bounty if they're not using any other tattoo designated wipe. I don't have anything against Bounty. However, these sort of napkins though tend to have texture, as you can see. So they have a texture on them. To me, if the napkins are, if we're using these to, let's say, dry wipe when we're done, the client is going to feel that So it's going to add even more discomfort upon them having to leave. So they're gonna have to deal with more discomfort using these specific napkins. Again, the Bounties do a good job in absorbing the ink and holding over it for the tattoo process. However, the Bounty aren't as textured as this. I also want to point that out as well. However, the fibers within the Bounty and the Scott napkins aren't designed either for tattooing. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure people are going to feel different. If you're using Bounty and it's worked for you all along, hey, by all means, you know, I'm nobody to say or change your workflow. But me personally, I don't use these specific napkins for that, for the fibers not being designed for tattooing. It's going to cause discomfort upon wiping broken skin, open skin. That's not something that I want to add on to my client. I want to decrease the amount of discomfort that my client feels upon tattooing, and I feel by avoiding using these household napkins, I'm doing so. Now, that's the reason why I don't use those, simply because the fibers aren't built for tattooing, and the fact that they're not built for tattooing is why I don't use them, making the napkins a little bit more sturdier and a little bit more rigid. They're designed to pick up like heavy spills and household spills and stuff like that, so I don't want to be wiping tattoo ink off of broken skin with something of such. Let's move into a bit of a softer napkin right here. And this is a Scotch Shop Wipe is what these are called. I've seen a lot of tattooists use these as well, and they do a great job. You'll see me using these in practicing. I do use these heavily upon practicing, as they are very absorbent and they do the job upon practicing. Now, why I won't use these for human skin is simply because I'm not comfortable with the blue dye or whatever makes this blue. The fibers are great though. I am a fan of the fibers. As you all can see, this is much more quality. It takes a bit more to break. So basically when you wet these napkins, they don't fall apart, they don't get soggy. That's the idea behind these. So these are a bit more, in terms of fibers, these are a bit more appropriate for tattooing. However, the process that goes into manufacturing them and making them this color, I'm not cool with wiping that onto my client, simply because I don't know. I don't know what this blue is. So if it's some sort of toxic poison that I could have prevented, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and do so. Again though, these are great for practice. I will use these for practicing, as they definitely do their job. So what I do use for tattooing though, this is the only wipe that I will ever use for tattooing now, is going to be Wipeouts, as you all can see right here. So these wipes right here are tattoo designated. So as you all can see, these are designated for tattooing. I do highly recommend you pick these up. I did make an in-depth video on these as well, so that way you can check these out. But nonetheless, these are designed for tattooing. The fibers are definitely soft, and I know that this one has a texture as well. However, the fibers that are used to design this specific wipe are very soft, so that way these textures don't have any sort of adverse reaction upon wiping the client down after their skin has been broken. I do highly recommend using these for tattooing. They are sterilized, they are designed for tattooing, which is what we want to be using. We want to be using tattoo designated gear to do tattoos when we can, if we can. And I highly recommend these right here for you all. And these are the Wipeouts. And again, I did make a full review on these. I will go ahead and leave a link in the description below for you all. So those are the Wipeouts, and that's basically my thought process behind approaching, you know, using napkins and wipes upon tattooing. I don't like using toilet paper. I don't like using Bounty or Scott household napkins. I only use these Scott Shop wipes for practicing, and you all know why I don't use them for tattooing. And I use the Wipeouts to wipe away all my ink and to wipe upon tattooing open skin. This is what I use right here, just to reiterate. Now, better hygienic practices and materials that you can use. Let's go ahead and get into the gloves here. Now, I do have a different assortment of gloves, and it took me a little bit to actually learn and understand this workflow that I grew into, or that I'm growing into here. I'm gonna go ahead and move these to the side. I'm also gonna get into this here with you all. Now, as you all can see, we have a different assortment of gloves right here. Forgive me. And I want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on the glove aspect for better hygienic practices and better materials that you can use upon tattooing. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the gloves here, and I'm going to share my thought process and approach, and I'm going to try and explain as much as I can on why I approach this the way that I do. I've seen professionals use these gloves and every glove in between that we can get our hands on For me specific, I don't really use these at all, ever, not even for like household chores. I use these for practicing, for videos, for practice tattooing, of course, and for household chores. And I also use these right here specifically only for tattooing. And I'm gonna go ahead and explain why. These gloves right here, I'm not specifically sure why, but this specific type of vinyl, it does contain a chemical called DINUP, which is a chemical known in the state of California to cause cancer, which is something I'm not truly comfortable with. So I'm not truly comfortable with having these gloves sit on my hands with that chemical inside of these gloves. As we start sweating inside of our gloves, the chemical, I guess, kind of would be released. This is my thought process behind it. As we start sweating in these gloves, I don't want that to have some sort of adverse reaction with my hand specific or my skin. I don't want this chemical on my body at all. So that's why I don't mess with these vinyl gloves. It may be different from your area, you know, in terms of what is used to make these vinyl gloves. So that's something that you may want to look into. But that is why, for me specific, I don't use these. I had this is the last box that I bought until I saw that. And after I saw that, I kind of just threw in the towel with these gloves. I'm just gonna have these around in case they're ever needed. Maybe if apocalypse ever happened or something like that, I would use these. But yeah, there we all have it. That is why I don't use these, simply because the chemicals that go into making these specific gloves. So I don't want to be tattooing hours on end. I'm going to be sweating inside these gloves. On top of that, I'm going to be wiping and holding this, you know, this person's skin with these gloves, exposing them to this chemical as well. So I don't want to expose myself to this chemical. I don't want to expose them to this chemical. It's completely preventable. I'm just going to go ahead and stay away from these and not use them. I don't recommend anyone using these, although read the box and make sure everything is good on your end. This is just how it is on my end. This is something that I'm not going to rock with, and that is why. Now these right here, I like these gloves. They look great, they fit great, and they do hold up. As you all can see, they're just a regular blue glove. They're actually these that I'm wearing right here. It doesn't have any of that on the side, as you all can see. Nothing like that. These gloves to me seem a bit safer to use for extensive period, you know, an extensive amount of time. So when I'm shooting these videos and I'm doing these practice tattoos, I'm doing this for hours on end, and my hands are going to be wearing these gloves. So I feel a lot more safer. I feel a lot more comfortable using these gloves, knowing that that chemical wasn't in here to go ahead and produce these gloves. However, I don't know if there's any other chemicals that are known to cause cancer in the state of California. However, that's just how I'm approaching it right here. That is why I chose to use these, because of the apparent information provided to me here. This is just better all around, using gloves for making videos, so that way I don't start cross-contaminating everything. Now, the reason why I use these gloves specific is because the color is very cool, but not only that, the width of the glove, these are very thick gloves, so when I put them on, it's a very heavy duty glove, which is what I like. I would rather tattoo real human skin with a super heavy duty glove over a super thin glove. I know I may sacrifice a little bit of comfortability, however, on my end, that is my approach. I'm always going to go with a thicker glove over a thinner glove any day upon tattooing humans. That's just the way that it is for me, and this is one of the brands that I use. This is just a video bringing awareness and raising awareness on better hygienic practices and better materials that we can use to tattoo. So yes, as I go through the box as well here with you all, there's nothing indicating any adverse information about chemicals or anything like that. So to me, that is a thumbs up, and these gloves are acceptable, not even on the back here, to go ahead and use for tattooing. Now, they are designed more so for like mechanics and plumbing and stuff like that. However, for tattooing, these for me are great. Every tattoo that I've ever done on human skin, or the majority of the tattoos now and that I've done in the near past, have been with these sort of thicker gloves. And I have these in a black, green, and an orange. And again, I will bring an elaborate video on the glove specific. However, these are the ones that I use for tattooing, and that is why. Simply because the glove is a heavy duty glove, which is a lot better for me specific. And that is why they are not made with anything known to cause cancer or anything like that, which is another plus for me. So that is why I rock with these gloves specific. Now, that is my thought process behind the gloves, and that is basically why I approach this the way that I do. I'm very mindful and I'm very thoughtful of what I am using and what I am exposing myself and others to upon tattooing. So that is big for me. That is something that I will always look for, better materials. And as I do get better materials along the way, I'm going to go ahead and share all of this with you all. Again, this is you all following me with my journey, which is why I highly recommend you to subscribe and ring that bell. This is the beginning of my journey, and you all are right here with me, joining me. So let's all grow together. Now, that'll be it for the gloves. That is my approach. If you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in the comments below. Let's go ahead and get into some other things here that we can go ahead and talk about for better hygienic practices. So let's say, for example, when you are doing tattoos, you would, for me personally, I would rather use a heavy duty glove. And using a heavy duty glove, let's say I'm going to be doing an extensive tattoo. Let's say I'm going to be doing a whole sleeve or back piece or a chest piece, right? I'm going to be using the Wipeouts. I'm going to be using the thicker gloves. And also, I would want to go ahead and use some of these. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what these are, but these are arm sleeves. So what these are going to do is they're going to go around my arm, and then they're going to basically protect my arm from any fluids that may come off of the person upon tattooing. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my hand in here, as you all can see. And they come up really high all the way up here, as you all can see. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this down like so. Especially when I'm going to be doing an extensive piece, I would definitely want to go ahead and maybe grab some of the Wipeout napkins and then get like 1 or 2 and then wrap them around and then tape them down. So that way I have the Wipeout napkins and then put this over. So that way I'm tattooing like that. So that way, if any of the fluids from, let's say, the back piece, the leg piece, the thigh piece, the full sleeve, was going to get on my hand, if there was that opportunity, it's now going to be on the barrier that I put on myself. This is a much better approach for better hygienic practices. And for me, this is something that I'm always going to use. I also thought about investing into some plastic aprons that I can put over my clothes as well. So that way when I tattoo, I know that we all experience ink splatter before every tattoo. I know that we all see it. So what I want to go ahead and do is get myself some aprons of this plastic material as well, so that way I can go ahead and dispose of them and just put them on over my clothes. I even take it a step further, and I have these little face protectors, because when I'm tattooing, I don't know about you all, but I get like really up close into my tattoo because I'm always using like a finer needle configuration. So I'm like really on the skin, and upon doing so, even in my practice sessions, I'll notice and sometimes I'll see and feel the drops hit my face. And I'm very, very grateful that I'm practicing on practice skins, experiencing all of this stuff, as opposed to practicing on humans and experiencing this stuff. That would not be good. So basically the idea behind this right here, this is a super clear face protector, as you all can see right here, and then you would simply put this on as well upon doing tattoos. I know for some of you all, you may leave laughing emojis, or you may be laughing and thinking this is funny, but to me, hygienic practices is a big deal to me. If I can go ahead and invest into materials of such that I'm sharing with you all, even just to prevent cross-contamination, I am going to go ahead and do that. This is the way that I'm going to go ahead and approach it. And yes, you better believe that I do use this gear upon tattooing human skins, and this is something that I worked into. This is something that I developed into. This isn't something that I knew when I first started. I didn't know of all of these little variables, which is why I wanted to make this video for you all and elaborate. And I'm gonna go ahead and just wear these out for the remainder of the video. But yes, as you all can see, I have the arm covers right here. I would like to go ahead and get some plastic aprons to go over my clothes when I'm doing a tattoo. And then I'm gonna go ahead, and I chose this specific clear material because I can go ahead and just get a super sanding cloth when I'm done and then wipe it down, which is also what we're gonna go ahead and get into, is some chemicals that I use for tattooing and why. But that's what these are right here. These little blue things right here, these blue guys are these arm covers. I wanted to go ahead and show you all them. I will go ahead and leave links in the description below to all the gear that I use upon tattooing, so that way you all can check it out. I'll also have a file, a PDF file that I can send you with the list of all the full gear that I use. I can go ahead and send you that as well. Just drop a comment down below and I'll send that your way. But that's what these are. I do highly recommend every tattooer using these. And upon tattooing, it's just little things like this. Like, there's just a couple more things that I want to touch base on here in the video. And they're all kind of little points like this. For example, when a tattooer is tattooing and upon doing their tattoo in their session, are they using reusable stuff? And if they are using reusable stuff, was it pulled out of the package? Was it autoclaved? Was it sterilized properly? For me, a better practice was going with disposable needle cartridges. These are one-time use needle cartridges. As you can see, single use. You use them one time and then you dispose of them. You never reuse the needle. So that's a better practice that I take in terms of hygienic practices. I don't really use any reusable gear at all. The only reusable gear that I would use is a 651, if I'm correct, stainless steel grip that I go ahead and I use to do shading. And I'll also get into that and what I use to sterilize that properly as well. I can actually show you all the chemical that I use to do that. And another little practice is like using dip cups. When the tattooer is tattooing, I prefer to use a dip cup over cleaning my napkin with, cleaning my needle with a napkin. So that's what these are for those who are wondering. I also made an in-depth review on these for you to check out. But that's basically my approach. Instead of, when my needle's going, instead of using and wiping off the excess ink on a napkin, which can pull up fibers, I use a dip cup right here, which is basically a sterilized piece of foam. I just pour some alcohol. As you can see, I have this one that's 91% inside, and I'm good to go for the tattoo session. But that's what this is for. Just simple little things like this, better hygienic practices, better materials that we can use. Now, let's say when I'm done or I need to wipe down stations and stuff like that, what I do use is a chemical called Cavisite, as you all can see right here. I'll do another in-depth review on this and how I use this, but I use this to go ahead and wipe down stations along with this as well. I use Cavisite to sterilize and disinfect the grips of my tattoo machines and my tattoo equipment. And as you all can see right here, super sandy cloth is what I use as well to go ahead and sterilize and disinfect over just simple alcohol wipes or soap and water and stuff like that. We need to go ahead and remove and eliminate any viruses or bacteria or bloodborne pathogens that may exist on our gear, our materials, and everything in between that can possibly have been touched upon tattooing. And that's basically what these chemicals are for, and these are materials that I also use upon my tattooing workflow. You also got the green soap. I'll go ahead and be doing a full in-depth review on green soap as well for you all. But these little things are, to me, very, very important. And these little things make up good hygienic practices, what you are using. Another thing that I also want to get into is, for example, when a tattooer is done and let's say they wrap a tattoo. I'm not saying that wrapping a tattoo with saran wrap is a bad thing. However, nowadays we can go ahead and go an extra step as tattooers for our clients, and we can get something like this, Saniderm. So this is, for me, a better approach when tattooing people. So whenever I tattoo someone, I always wrap them up with Saniderm over this. And even if it's like if it's a full back piece, I'm not sure if I would necessarily wrap that. But in terms of, like, you know, let's say arm tattoos, your typical tattoo, someone comes in, they want a tattoo, anything that's actually wrappable, I would actually wrap it with the Saniderm. However, there may be some situations and circumstances where you would want to use this. Again, let's say if it is a big back piece or a chest piece or something that would be difficult to wrap with Saniderm, I would definitely go this route. However, this is just a simple practice, you know, materials here again for hygienic practices. Using Saniderm is also a way to go. I do highly recommend to use Saniderm. I will make an in-depth video on how that works, how I apply it, how I remove it. Furthermore, that is pretty much it in terms of like better hygienic practices. And this is just better hygienic practices in a nutshell. This is just simply materials that I use and why I use them upon tattooing. This isn't anything to say, oh, you're doing it wrong, or this isn't necessarily right or wrong. This is just my approach and why I do the things that I do. And I'm just sharing my logic with you all here. And again, these super sandy wipes are used to clean the machine, sterilize and disinfect the machines, as well as anything else that I may deem that needs to be sterilized and disinfected correctly, as these are designed to do just that. But I'm trying to think off the top if there's anything else that I can go ahead and touch base on. I also wanted to go ahead and share another material that I use for better hygienic practices. Now, I've seen a lot of people, and majority of people, use petroleum jelly, which is basically Vaseline, something to this extent right here. And for me, I don't feel truly comfortable putting this on my client's skin and then opening their skin with something of this material. What I use is this right here. This is what I use to moisturize the skin before we go ahead and apply the actual ink into the skin. This is just a better practice. This is just the way that I do things. This is just the material that I choose to use over Vaseline, and here is why. Because to me, petroleum jelly, I understand that it does say skin protectant. However, To my understanding, this was more for mechanics. Now, I could be incorrect, so don't quote me on that. However, to me, that's just my logic, my thought process. This is more for like machines and stuff like that, not so much to break an open skin as something like this. This is more of a natural product made from plant extracts and stuff like that. So this is a lot more appropriate to break someone's skin and apply ink into someone's skin with. This is just another material that I use to go ahead and practice better hygienic practices. I will go ahead and make a full in-depth review on this Ink Ease product for you all as well, and I'll go ahead and explain more and elaborate on that video on why I use this. But in a nutshell, that's basically my logic and thought process behind it. This is just more acceptable for me in my eyes to apply ink into someone's skin. Yeah, in terms of materials, this is pretty much everything that I use to tattoo. Again, in a nutshell, I do have an in-depth list for you all to check out so you can actually see materials that I use. But specifically in terms of hygienic practices, this is going to be my approach in a nutshell. I'm still wearing the protective gear here, and these are actually holding up. I thought that these would be, that they would move around a lot more, but these little bands really do their job, and I put them right around here. So that way, in case they are going down, it gives me time to acknowledge that they're going down, as opposed to putting them right here. And then by the time they're right here, you know what I mean? So that's just my logic behind that. That's why I put them so high. But I love these little arm wraps. They are great. I do highly recommend them. I do highly recommend to think about it to yourself and think about your workflow and think about ways that you can actively implement better practices to promote better hygienic practices. I just want to go ahead and reiterate and point out that in a nutshell, this is the materials that I use to go ahead and tattoo human skin. This is not by any means right or wrong. This is just simply the workflow and approach that I am developing as I develop into tattooing more. And that is all the logic behind why I chose the specific materials that I use. Just to recap, I use a very heavy duty glove. I use Wipeouts for wiping. I do use these blue arm covers to cover my arm. And I use Saniderm to wrap, and then in terms of cleaning and disinfecting my machines and tattoo areas, I use Cavisite as I showed you all, and I use the Super Sani cloth there as well. And that is basically what I do use. I also do put my 91% alcohol into my dip cup. So I'll put out one dip cup essentially that has just sterile water, and then I'll put another dip cup that just has a little bit of alcohol, enough to where when I drop my needle in there, the needle tip and the beginning of the cartridge stays at the bottom, and that is covered, so that way my needles don't dry out. That's what I use alcohol for upon tattooing human skin as well. But that is it. That is the approach that I take. Other little practices again would be like the dip foam cups over wiping the needle in the napkin, wrapping their grip, as well as using proper wraps to wrap their tattoo machine. Like this is a properly wrapped tattoo machine, as you all can see. It has a blue film around it, and then it has the grip tape covered over, and then this is just simple saran wrap to go over this bigger battery, as this blue fitting wouldn't fit over that part. But as you all can see, these are little things that you want to go ahead and invest in and do upon tattooing to protect your gear, to protect yourself, and to protect your client as well. As you all can see, this is one wrap machine. This is a perfectly wrapped machine. And then there's another one that I have over here as well. That one was the CNC Q2. This one is going to be the CNC WE. And as you all can see, these are perfectly wrapped machines. You can go ahead and tape this right here if you choose. But you want to have a barrier and a grip tape if you use grips over the machine. And these are just little better hygienic practices and materials that you can use to go ahead and do so. I do highly recommend you invest in these as well. Again, I will leave links in the description below for you all. I'm not trying to say that this is by any means right or wrong. My goal here was to bring awareness and shed some light on my approach and why I use what I use upon tattooing. But there you all have it. If I come up with anything more as I develop more and I start using more gear for my hygienic practices, I'm not sure how much more gear I can possibly use upon tattooing. I will go ahead and update you all as we develop. Again, this is the beginning of my journey. I'm just sharing how I approach it with you all. If you have any questions, if I didn't touch base on something specific that you may have wanted to know, by all means, please feel free to drop it in the comments down below, and I'm going to guide you in the best possible direction. If you're not, be sure to go ahead and give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as I do have social medias all under the same name at Daniel Yuck, DANIELYUCK. I would genuinely appreciate the support. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing you more videos like this. Yet again, I genuinely appreciate you tuning in. You have a great day.